Hello, Facebook. I'm Evan Dashevsky, features editor with PC Mag. Welcome to The Convo. This is the interview series where we talk to the boldest minds in science, technology, and geekdom. Now, today we're going to talk about fictional technology, specifically about how technology is portrayed in all movies and TV. Now, usually tech comes off a little dumb on the screen. The producers don't care about getting the little details right. Think about shows like CSI where they lazily attribute everything to the dark web. Basically, that's just where all the bad computer things happen and they leave it there. Now, there's actually one show that we were very happy to see that actually gets the details right. Now, that's the USA show Mr. Robot. Now, specifically, this gets the details about security and hacking culture really right, and my guest today is actually a reason why, which we'll get to in a bit. But before, I'm going to give you a little taste of what we're talking about. We're going to roll a quick clip from the first season, which shows a piece of propaganda from the fictional hacking group that the show's about called F Society. And it looks very much like videos put out by groups like Anonymous. So let's roll the clip and we'll show the audience what we're talking about.
Hello, Evil Corp. We are F Society. Over the years, we've been watching you. Your financial abuse of the poor, your corruption of governments, your cover-ups of the murder of innocent, ordinary citizens, all for the sake of profit. This is why we at F Society have decided you must die. We are malicious and hostile. We do not compromise. We are relentless. We will not stop until every tentacle of your evil monstrosity is sliced off at the nerve. But we are also not without mercy. Our latest hack was our last warning. Meet our demands and we will consider not destroying you.
Whoa, heavy stuff, right? Okay, so we're back, and part of the insidery and detailed feel of the show is thanks to my guest, one of the show's writers and the technology producer, don't believe that sign, and a retired hacker himself, Kor Adana. Kor, welcome to the convo.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so now one of the interesting things, before we start, I'm also going to say is that we want to hear your questions about Mr. Show or about hacking technology, and so leave your questions in the comments. Social people will read them later on the show. I'm also going to say is that there will be spoilers on the show for people who have not caught up to the last episode, and for those who have watched all the episodes, maybe we'll try to trick Kor into giving us some secrets. What's going to happen later in the show? Who knows? Okay.
Probably not.
Oh, we'll see about that. Okay, so Kor, let's start with you. Now, you actually have an interesting background. Now, from what I've read, you were actually kind of like the show's main character, Elliot. You were a teenage hacker who got in trouble with the law and then kind of became a white hat after that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened?
So I started off probably when I was 11 or 12, and for those of you who watched the episode from 2 weeks ago when Elliot's recounting his first hack ever on his library's AS400 system.
Yeah.
That was actually my first hack that I ever did. So after I got into a little bit of trouble and I had a little bit of a scare, I decided to go 100% white hat, and I ended up getting a job for a major automotive corporation doing cybersecurity for them.
Wow.
And I did that for a couple of years. I did pen testing, I designed security policies, I did electronic discovery and computer forensics. And then I decided to make the jump into the entertainment industry, and I quit and pursued my true passion of writing and directing.
Very cool. What was your cool hacker name?
My cool hacker name, I had a couple.
Okay.
The good thing about hacker names is that once you screw up online or you make a mistake, you can start all over again. I probably not a great idea to divulge that. Right?
Fair enough. Okay, so moving on. So then you move into the entertainment industry. So how did you find your way to working with Cms Mail on Mr. Robot?
I had a job on another USA series called Rush, which was short-lived. I was a showrunner's assistant on that show. And I got to know the executives and the assistants over at USA Network really well. And once that show got canceled and we were on, I didn't have a job for a couple months, I grabbed drinks with one of the executives there, Jake Castiglione, and he told me about this new show that I would be perfect for, this hacker show that Sam had created. And at that point, they had just shot the pilot, and he sent me the script, and I loved it. I gave him my thoughts on it. He set a meeting with me and Sam, because Sam was looking for an assistant at that point. And I met Sam, and right away we bonded on our mutual disdain for how hacking and technology had been portrayed in film and television up to that point. And he didn't know that I had a past life in cybersecurity and that I know this world really, really well. So when he heard that, he was just ecstatic. And from there, it kind of evolved into this kind of tech consulting, job for me for season 1.
You talked about your mutual disdain for how tech is shown on movies and TV. Can you recall any of your least favorite or most face-palmy sort of times that they just get tech completely wrong?
There is a case. I'm not going to mention which show it is, what show it's from, but there are 2 people typing on the same workstation at the same time, trying to track down this hacker, and it's completely ridiculous.
Yep.
And it's just, it's usually used. Producers up to this point have used hackers and hacker lingo as a way for just dumping exposition off to the viewer. There's a hacker in the corner typing furiously at a keyboard, and there's 3 graphics flying in their face, and it looks more like a video game than what it would actually look like in reality. And Sam and I, from the get-go, decided that portraying this in a realistic fashion is inherently dramatic. And I know that all these other people, they either didn't take the time to research what it actually looks like, or they just don't think it's interesting. And we think it's very interesting. So that's what we've been trying to do with Mr. Robot.
Now, so what's your role with the show? Now, my understanding is that Sam actually has the idea, like the whole show kind of planned out for how many episodes and season, all the arcs kind of all together. So is your job kind of like to come in and kind of just make it more real?
So there are other writers, and I, along with Sam, we break the entire story together. And Sam he knows where he wants to go with the series, and there are milestones that he has in mind. But we help him get there, and we come up with the story points to get from A to B. And story comes first in the writer's room, and everything needs to make sense from an emotional and character perspective. But there are hacks along the way, and there are things that our characters need to accomplish with technology along the way, and it's really where I come in. And usually when something like that comes up in the room, Sam will just be like, "Hey, Kor, go figure this out and come back to us with something that makes sense for what we're trying to accomplish." And then I have a team of consultants that work under me that are brilliant. Ryan Kazantsian, Andre McGregor, James Pluff, Mark Rogers, and Michael Bazell. And in tandem, I have my own kind of technology writers room running. I'll spend 12, 14 hours with our Mr. Robot writers, and then at home I'll talk to my group of consultants, and we'll come up with a realistic hack that fits the story. And at that point, it's just a couple of lines. Like once we decide on something, at that point it's just a general description that goes into the scripts. And then once we go into production, we will do a deep dive into what does that hack actually look like. Like what do our characters need to type on screen? What are the software tools that they'll use? What are the pieces of hardware that they'll use? And how do we accurately recreate that for our show?
Facebook, I see you already got some questions. Pete, what you got?
We have a viewer who wants to know, what's the best online resource for learning about cybersecurity?
Honestly, what I use for the show, I watch DEF CON demos nonstop. There are so many inspirations for what we use on Mr. Robot that actually came from demos that were done at DEF CON. So that would be my first stop, is just kind of spend a lot of time on YouTube. There are so many people in the InfoSec community and in the hacking community that share their experiences and share demos online. So first stop for me is usually YouTube.
Have you gotten any feedback from the hacker community? Do they like the show? Do they think it's cool? Or
Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was at DEF CON doing a panel for Mr. Robot, and it's amazing and flattering to me that the hacking community has embraced the show, and they do feel that this is the first show to come along ever to actually nail these details and do it the right way. So they've been extremely supportive, and actually Mark Rogers, who's on my consulting team, has done the security at DEF CON for the past 17 years, I believe. So I think that the show has struck a chord with the hacking community in the sense that, for the first time ever, they're seeing their experiences portrayed in a show in a realistic manner.
For those of you at home who don't know, DEF CON is kind of like this annual actual gathering of hackers where they give presentations, they have panels. We cover it here at PC Max. There's some cool stuff comes out of there. Facebook, I see you have some questions. What you got?
How did Mr. Robot get Alf on the last episode? What was involved in making that happen?
How did Mr. Can you repeat the question? How did Mr. Robot get out?
How did Mr. Robot get Alf on the last episode?
Get Alf. So Alf is This was a really fun idea that Sam came up with in the writers' room. Where what does Elliot's happy place look like when Mr. Robot is taking over and really taking the punches for Elliot, so to speak, and kind of helping him not feel pain? Where is his happy place? And for us, it was kind of this 90s sitcom era of, where every single problem you have gets solved within 30 minutes, and there's a nice lesson to be learned at the end of, whether you're watching Family Matters or, something on TGIF, Perfect Strangers, or Step by Step. And Alf was something that we discussed early on. We're like, it would be amazing if we could actually incorporate one of these characters from one of those 90s sitcoms into our show. And we never thought we'd be able to get him, but once we contacted Paul Fusco, who's the original puppeteer for Alf, who was a fan of the show and agreed to work on this show with us. And we actually got the guys Bennett and Jesse, who do all the original music for. I think they did the music for Family Matters, for Step by Step, for Full House, for all these other shows, and they actually did the intro music for that episode. So it was fantastic. We were able to recreate a 90s sitcom and have it make sense narratively too, that this is where Mr. Robot puts Elliot to kind of shield him from the pain and danger that he encounters in his real life.
Now, through the work you do and the history you have, how paranoid have you become with technology? Like, we're on Skype right now. Are you the kind of guy who has like a Band-Aid over your camera at other times when you're not necessarily using it?
I do. I took it off for this interview, and I'm going to put it right back on when we're done.
Yeah.
But I've always been paranoid.
Yeah.
I don't think my tactics and my techniques have changed that much. Just as a result of working on this show, but everyone around me has changed the way that they use their technology. I think every single writer and every single member of our crew has come up to me at some point, and we've had the conversation about how to secure your mobile devices, whether or not you should be using two-factor authentication, smart password policies, using tape on your webcams, things of that nature. So it's something I think I have made everyone around me a lot more paranoid. But I don't think my tactics have changed that much just as a result of the show.
Just the last few years, we've had a lot more connected devices, what Internet of Things do you have in your home?
I don't have any in my home.
Because of security?
Mainly because of security, and mainly because I don't see a use. Like I don't need my refrigerator connected to my home network. I don't need I don't see the use in a lot of these things. So unless there's a need for it, I won't really explore it. I mean, I don't even wear a smartwatch device. I don't. There are a lot of things that I just don't do because I don't see the need for it, and it's not worth it to me to introduce a new level of potential risk into my process if I don't really see a need for it. So that's usually. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Internet of Things, but that may change in the future. Who knows?
Cool. Facebook, I see you got some questions. What you got?
Did Anonymous have a big influence on the show, and have they contacted you in any way?
Well, definitely, like the clip that you saw at the beginning of this show, the F Society video, that original F Society video you see in season 1, was inspired by Anonymous's message to Scientology, and a lot of other Anonymous videos that came out. And even the F Society mask is very reminiscent of the Anonymous Guy Fawkes mask. And the reception from Anonymous has been extremely positive. And actually, there's a cameo in season 2 from one of the founding members of Anonymous. I won't spoil it for you, but if you go rewatch our first couple episodes in season 2, you'll catch one of the founding members of Anonymous that's in one of the scenes. Oh, so overall, I think their reception of the show has been extremely positive.
Now, the question about Internet of Things, that was actually from one of my coworkers, Chandra Steele, who leads a discussion where we all kind of give our input on the episode the day after. So on Thursdays, we have our What the F Society, which you can see find on PC Mag. But also one of my other coworkers, Rob Marvin. Now, he wanted me to ask you, now, a lot of times in the show, you'll see a poster for eCoin, and it's right next to the Bitcoin poster with a similar sort of logo. What are you guys trying to say with that? And will eCoin perhaps play a role later in the show, or are you making a statement with that?
So I think this is the point in this interview where you're strategically trying to get a spoiler out of me for eCoin, and I'm not going to bite.
Fair enough.
All I'll say is keep your eyes peeled. We definitely wanted to deal with cryptocurrencies in this season, and Bitcoin and the advent of eCoin are two things that we really wanted to visit and develop as things go along. So just hang in there, keep watching, and you'll get the answer to that question by the time the season's over.
Fair enough. Now tech moves fast, and you've actually guys have had to adapt. So like last year, there was the big Ashley Madison hack, and you kind of like jerry-rigged it into the show kind of after the fact, after you're done filming. Is that correct?
Actually, originally, Sam had written an Ashley Madison hack into that script before the Ashley Madison hack occurred.
Yeah.
He then cut it, and then the Ashley Madison hack actually happened, and then he put it back in. So it's amazing that just timing-wise, how things have lined up with real-world events and real-world hacks and data dumps and the plot points that we're dealing with on the show. Mm-hmm. Actually, the Sony hack happened the same week that we were greenlit that we were picked up for series.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So just the timing with that has been extraordinary. But for Ashley Madison, Sam had that down. Sam had the idea for that before it actually happened.
I mean, did he actually use the name Ashley Madison, or was it like an Ashley Madison-like service?
No, he actually used the name Ashley Madison in the script before it happened. That's crazy. That was one of the cases where Sam was just being Sam.
Just as someone who like follows kind of like the culture and the technology, what are your feeling on hacker activists who are kind of like F Society, or like people who go after certain causes, and Anonymous is a big part of that. Do you have any opinion on those guys and gals?
I think it's a noble cause, and I think that just the whole concept of hacktivism is deeply rooted in Mr. Robot itself. You have a group of characters who are trying to elicit change, and they're trying to use technology in a way to bring about some kind of political change or make a political statement. And I think if there are injustices in the world that you can right with your use of technology and your skills with technology. So I think that's a very noble cause, and I think it's if it's something that I can get behind, then I'm all for it. Of course, it depends on the situation. Each situation is different, but just the nature of hacktivism is something that's extremely compelling and something that we wanted to deal with on the show.
Facebook, what you got?
Have you had any resistance from the hacker community?
Overall, my experience with the hacker community has been overwhelmingly positive. Thank God. Really, my contribution to the show is for them. I know how detail-oriented they are, and I know how important it is for them to see tools that they recognize and see hacks and techniques that they recognize. So I try my hardest to incorporate real-world tactics and tools and real hacks into the show, really for them. And so overall, it's been extremely positive, and I can't be. It's flattering, and it sets the bar really high too, because the expectations are really high for us to keep nailing this level of authenticity. But I haven't encountered that much resistance from them at all. It's been very, very warm and very inviting.
Here's a question I've always wondered: why are so many hackers from the Ukraine and Russia?
I can't. I mean, I don't have a clear answer for that. There are a lot of. It's used in stories a lot too, and a lot of film and television. You'll see nation-state hackers from Russia, and I know that there are a lot of real-world events currently that match that narrative. But there are nation-state hackers from all over. And one thing that we try to do on the show is really capture the diversity of the hacking community. Because if you ever go to conferences like DEF CON, you'll see there are hackers from all different walks of life, different ages, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, male and female. And we really tried to nail that with the members of F Society and creating a diverse group of hackers that way.
Facebook, what you got?
You were asking, why does season 2 take place in 2015?
So this is a heavily serialized story, and our season 1 starts in it starts at the end of 2014, I believe, and it goes into 2015. And we wanted to continue the story right where we left off. So in a way, we're making it a little bit more challenging for ourselves, that we're going to keep picking up where we left off and seeing how the consequences and repercussions of this evil corp hack, what happens to the world, what does the world look like immediately after that. So we are saying our timeline is staying in 2015, and we're going to just keep carrying it on from there. And sometimes we'll jump back in time for a flashback here and there, just to explain a character history at some point. But that's just the nature of the serialized timeline that we're dealing with.
Just because it's in the news right now, Snowden has actually been critical of a group like WikiLeaks. I'm just wondering, so in your opinion, WikiLeaks, friend or foe of humanity?
That's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I usually want to talk about in these kinds of exchanges. But I will say that it is something that we definitely talk a lot about in the writers' room, and there are a bunch of different opinions about Snowden and WikiLeaks and the way that is used as a tool to disseminate information. It's something that we are just intrigued by, and something that we do try to incorporate in the show as well. Just the nature of data dumps in general is something that we try to incorporate in season 1 and season 2 of the show.
Great. And I also say, for anybody at home, if you haven't watched the show, it's not just like all like nerd tech talk. It's a great show as well. It's very cinematic. That's at Facebook. Do we have any more questions? We do have one more.
Actually, there's one. People are asking if Apple is going to be featured in any future episodes.
I believe it's hard. Just the nature of incorporating real real companies and different brands of hardware and software is a challenge for us, because depending on how we use them in the story, a lot of companies don't want to be affiliated with something that may be negative that's happening in the story, or a hack that's happening in the story. So it really depends. It's a case-by-case basis of how we're using them. I would love to incorporate Apple in some way. And actually, in season 1, we did incorporate Apple. We had, I think we had Mobley. He was spinning at that end of the world party, and he was on a MacBook Air. I think Angela uses a MacBook Air. So we do showcase Apple devices. We don't always show them being associated with a hack per se. But I would love to show more of Apple and any device, any real world company. I would love to incorporate into the show. Consumerism and consumer culture is a huge aspect of this show. So whenever I can get my hands on real tools, real hardware, real software, it's always a win for me.
Right. No. So where's production at now? And we're about 5 or 6 episodes into the season. How many? Well, and you guys are still making the show this season, correct?
We are still. I am in the post-production facility right now. We are editing next week's show and
Really?
finalizing that. We're still working. We work on these shows up until our deadlines, and we're still finalizing everything and finishing out season 2. And we're going to be doing this for about another month.
Oh, very cool. Do you know, will there be a season 3? Do we know that yet?
Season 3 just got announced at the beginning of our discussion, so there will be a season 3. Yep.
There you go. PC Mag exclusive, maybe? Yeah. Great. Well, Kor, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. And I'll just say thanks to Social Pete. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the conversation. Be good to each other. Don't hack each other. Watch the rest of our show. We do a lot of great interviews here. So give us a like, give us a share, and I'll just leave it out with peace.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kor.